And their first studies came out in the 1950s. And I look at this relationship between Loma Linda University and Harvard School of Public Health, and it's just grown stronger and stronger and stronger till we get to where we are today. And it's become the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And in America, again, it's the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine, and we've got the Australasian Society of Lifestyle Medicine here. But in America, it is hugely influential, and they are one of the invitees to the White House Conference on hunger, nutrition, and health. It's coming up tomorrow. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine is one of the very few groups that are invitation only have been invited into this. And only on Friday, James Connolly had sent me a message. So I was able to see that the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which was founded on the campus of Loma Linda University by 9 devout Seventh-day Adventists, they are presenting, and they have offered the White House Conference on Nutrition. I'll shorten it because it's too hard. I can never remember the words. So the White House Conference on Nutrition, they've offered $24 million worth. They're saying it's a donation of $24 million. But the donation, if you look at the fine print, is offering 100,000 physicians 5.5 hours of free resource on their website. So this potentially is 100,000 health professionals who've never heard the health reform message of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, or it has grown beyond just a church-owned group. But I'd say Coca-Cola came in 2009, 2010, and food industry, and it's just become a very powerful group. If you look at their plates, there's not a single animal protein or fat on them that they're advertising. So here's 100,000 unsuspecting physicians potentially being offered an opportunity to look at some resources, and the resources that they're offering are fairly benign. They're about pregnancy and health and different things. So these physicians could then go, well, this looks like a great professional group. They've been endorsed by other societies in America, and they're presenting at the White House Conference on Nutrition. So potentially the windfall to the American College of Lifestyle Medicine donating $24 million could be hundreds of millions of dollars back if these people decide to pay for their own, investigating into more of their resources, or if they decide they want to become a member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, or they want to sit the exam. The board review manual, to look at the board review manual and get ready for the exam, is $889 if you're not a member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. In the board review manual has been written by the founder of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which was originally the Christian Association of Lifestyle Medicine. It has been written by a devout Adventist. And he's very clever. Look, and again, I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm not saying these people are bad, because this is a belief that they've been indoctrinated to think that fruit, nuts, grains, and seeds, and after the fall, Ellen then included vegetables, but really the biblical Garden of Eden is only fruit, nuts, and seeds. And I've spoken recently to a Seventh-day Adventist who said he followed all of the guidelines. He became a fruitarian, and he was so sick. So, we're talking, that really is the diet. We're talking about 100,000 physicians signing up, and then 50 years ago, we learned to demonize animal fats. They are now demonizing animal proteins. And imagine if they get hundreds of millions of dollars, how much bigger that association is going to grow and how much further their reach will be. And I often talk about the fact that I think the Adventist health reform message via stealth is embedding itself in the very fabric of American society at this point in time. And it will come to the UK, and it will come to Australia and everywhere else. But Advent Health, I think there's 4 different Adventist health groups in America, and they own 84 hospitals between them. So we're talking a big footprint in America. Mm-hmm. Advent Health bought the Blue Zones Project in 2020.
Interesting. I had the Blue Zones on my, because everyone knows about the Blue Zones Project.
Everyone knows about the Blue Zones.
It made big publicity. It
but
was
the only reason
all over the world, everyone knew.
The only reason everyone knows about it is because Michel Pula and Giovanni Pes, back in the 1990s, were demographers looking at geography and cultural reasons for people potentially to have longevity. And in 2004, Dan Buettner approached National Geographic and said, everyone wants a pill to longevity. How can we create a lifestyle? And when he worked out that it was Okinawa and Sardinia and different places, he went, well, we need one in America. So what's the only blue zone in America? Loma Linda.
Oh my
Seventh-day Adventists.
Right.
So Loma Linda, the city of Loma Linda, about a third of the residents are Seventh-day Adventists. But if you look, or any of the people who are listening, look online to see the Loma Linda University Hospital, it is massive. So potentially the people who are in Loma Linda, and there's no doubt there are some people there who have got exceptional longevity. And if you think about the health reform of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, they're also talking about sleep and fresh air and exercise and no tobacco, no drugs. There's a lot of really clever things which were being talked about early 1800s. This is health. How can we look at it? It's just the fact that it's demonizing animal proteins and fats, which is hugely concerning. So lifestyle medicine. If you look at this plant slant diet that Dan Buettner's produced, it's 95% plants, but every single one of the blue zones, except for Loma Linda, used to use lard for cooking, used to use pigs, but that's an unclean meat. It's not even just a meat, it's unclean. And I read somewhere that Ellen G. White touched a pig once and she burnt her clothes because she felt it was so filthy and so dirty. So if you think about processed meats, what's the demonization? Why are processed meats that have been made since 300 BC almost? They're mostly pork. So, you start to put all these bits and pieces together. And I know there's some religions that don't eat pork and there's some religions that don't eat beef. But if you don't ascribe to those religions, they don't tend to make anyone else want to do it. Whereas the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I believe, is the only religion that I've come across that believe public health evangelism is the duty of the church. Every single person is to become a medical evangelist. It's called total member involvement. And they are to do cooking classes or just take a vegan cake to a neighbor or, all of these things to just start to get this message across. And they say that the health reform message, by using a vegetarian health concept, is an opening wedge to the hearts and minds to people who wouldn't necessarily come to hear the gospel truth, to hear their version of the gospel. And it's amazing. They've got over and over, I've found information where they've gone into China as health. They've gone into, third world countries as providing health. And then they bring about their version of the gospel, which is quite different to the version most people would understand. And it's too big a topic to go into today. But I think this concept that now they've bought the blue zones. Last year in the US, they had the 89th US Congress of Mayors. And to go to that event, you have to have 30,000 people in your city. So influential mayors in fairly big cities around America. They signed a document that 1,400 mayors would all sign up to the blue zones. It's overwhelming when you think how incredible this messaging is getting into American psyche without them even really understanding where it's all coming from. So if you think about, that's 1,400 cities. I found a document, I think from 2018, when Dan Buettner still owned the Blue Zones project, and they were talking about $6.5 million for a city to become a Blue Zone accredited city. 1,400 mayors have just signed up. It is unbelievable. So I say, I'm not against the people in the church per se. I've been reached out to by a lot of people in the church who have said that they're sick and how can I help them? And some of these people love their church. They love a lot of the doctrines and the belief in sleep. You don't die, you wait for Jesus to come back, and in sleep he will take you back to heaven. So there's some things that are very, very important to these people, that they believe in the doctrines. And so even the people at the very top, I'm not suggesting that they're bad people, but their belief is unless they convert enough people to give up flesh meat, it's not worth Jesus's time to come back to earth to get us, because when we go back to heaven, it will be the Garden of Eden diet of fruit, nuts, and seeds. And if we're still desiring flesh meat, we'll disrupt the feeling that will be in heaven. And I truly believe it's about salvation for them.
The question I'll have to ask here is, science. Is it
science?
Right,
science. What science? Yes.
It's advancing at a sort of a rapid rate. I attended San Diego Low Carb Conference recently, a month ago.
Amazing.
I heard things we collectively didn't know about 5 years ago. Another role of insulin, another hormone, things we didn't know about 10 or even 5 years ago. Science is advancing. So how can nutrition science be stuck?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
How can that be? How can that be right? How could we not? I mean, for all this effort and evangelism and converting people to a supposedly healthier way of living, if all of that energy could be spent, and money could be spent on science-based nutrition, we could be living in a world of healthier and happier people.
And I think the issue is they call it science-based, they call it evidence-based, because their evidence comes from the Bible, and God made Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden diet, in the Garden of Eden. So in their mind, and Ellen G. White's interpretations of the scriptures, which are, again, if you really start to look into them, they're quite different. But she determined that God is the author of science, and if man's ideas of science elevate him above God, so if we think animal proteins and fats are important in our diet, then we are of Satan. So, it's really a very, very powerful and concerning belief that they have, that they want to take worldwide and not just keep within themselves. That's the concern. And as I say, no transparency, because they're not getting financial things. So mind you, the groups are getting financial incentives. The blue zones are set to make so much money for the Adventist Health. And this American College of Lifestyle Medicine, I believe, are set to make so much money from this donation to the White House conference on Wednesday that is mind-blowing. And Sanitarium here in Australia, the things that they do, the investments that they make, they're always trying to look at how to create like stevia. At one point in time, a few years ago, they owned the largest integrative stevia production in the world. And they were the ones that went to the US to argue about getting it recognized as safe, the grass. And then they came to Australia and went, we've got to get it recognized as safe here in the food standards, because they don't believe there should be a lot of sugar. So they see sugar as harmful, even though a lot of the foods that they make in sanitariums up and go is chemical concoction with sugar. The base belief is that can they get rid of the sugar by having an alternative and make stevia instead? So they're a business. It is a business. There's a commercial arm to this church that is huge, and that's their health commercial arm, that's their food industry arm, and they're hugely involved in corporate wellness programs. The CHIP program that runs in Australia, if you look, I found their facilitator's guide. Of course, you can't get any access to it anywhere now, but I managed to get it, I think, in 2017, 2016. And if you look at it, it's got meat, dairy, eggs, milk, meat, dairy, and eggs above alcohol, processed food, and caffeine as the worst possible health outcomes. And this CHIP program it's one of the biggest corporate wellness programs in Australia and New Zealand. And in America, it's been huge in some, they've been getting it bigger and bigger, but I think they've worried about me calling it out all the time. And CHIP's a very recognizable name. It had a very recognizable logo. So in America, this year, they changed it to Pivio Health. But this is also what they do. In Australia, Sanitarium has just signed up a partnership with Life Health Education. And Life Health Education was founded by a guy many, many years ago with, I think he was a Catholic, and he wanted to talk about drugs and alcohol because he was working in King's Cross here in Sydney and saw so many young people just fall off the wayside. I think his church was called the Wayside Church, and he spent years in this. So he started Life Education, and they go to schools and just talk about drugs and alcohol and, harm minimization. Sanitarium just recently partnered with them, and their plan is to create a nutrition model. And they're going to create resources for primary school children, parents, and teachers. And I've gone, And Life Education probably went, thank you, Sanitarium. That's so kind of you. I'm going to write to their board and just go, did you realize this is what our children are going to be taught? My grandchildren, do we have a choice in what our children and our grandchildren are taught as, for the demonization of animal proteins and fats and why that's happening in these resources? And at the moment, we don't get a choice because they'll just go to public schools all around Australia.
Belinda, you mentioned the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and the Australian College of...
the Australasian Society of Lifestyle Medicine. In Britain, it's called the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine. So
are these related to the International Boards of Lifestyle Medicine?
Yes, they're all under the sister umbrella of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine.
So International Board of Lifestyle Medicine is one you mentioned before. So
the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine, yeah.
Right.
But the American College of Lifestyle Medicine is the mothership, and they're all satellites. I think they run exams now in something like 13 or 14 countries worldwide. The Asian Society of Lifestyle Medicine, the South Pacific Society of Lifestyle Medicine, there would be 4 or 5 that are almost exclusively Seventh-day Adventists. The British Society of Lifestyle Medicine was founded by a Seventh-day Adventist and so you'll find if you go there, it's very vegetarian, vegan orientated, but I don't believe there are any Seventh-day Adventists on the board of the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine or the Australasian Society of Lifestyle Medicine. They've tried, because I've been calling it out and they were very unhappy. And I wasn't doing it to be mean. I was just trying to point out to things, but because they've disassociated themselves as the actual boards. But if you sit the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine, if you become a member, you are sitting the exams from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which is based on the Adventist Health Reform message. And you can tell me whatever you want to tell me. They might be talking a bit about low carb. They have, David Unwin and different people come and speak at their events. But in my mind, they're bringing a little bit of sensibility to their conferences. People will come, but then they're so overwhelmed with the demonization of animal proteins and fats as time goes on that we've taken them to the church and then we've left them there and not supported them because the people on the boards don't support animal proteins and fats. Even though they're not necessarily part of the church, it's become a more of a food industry, certainly in Australia, food industry and ethical beliefs have very much come into those spaces. And so they align. And I've spoken to them and they say, it doesn't matter that it's religion at the back because it's important to give up animal proteins and fats for the planet. So, it's very concerning. But yes, the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine was founded by the American College and Church.
Well, there are 2 questions here to ask. Now, for layperson, someone interested in improving their health, right?
Yes.
Google search. They do Google search and you see a website of, I don't know, a lifestyle medicine, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Very innocent sounding. You don't know the biases.
No.
So innocent sounding name. And you would beliefs. It's
lifestyle medicine is the best name ever.
anyway, so why wouldn't anyone believe if they're not actually seeing who's funding this?
And because they, Georgia Eade had the best summary of a whole lot of things, and it's a benevolent agenda. They talk about the importance of sleep. They talk about the importance of water and exercise and basing your diet on plants, no ultra processed foods. So it's very easy to get into the space, and they talk about mental health. But someone I was speaking to really recently said to me, the reason so many Seventh-day Adventists are developing mental health issues is because they're not having any healthy fats in their diet. And then they develop all these programs to improve mental health, which is really a circular, concerning thing. But yes, lifestyle medicine, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant name, and it does encapsulate everything. I know Aseem Malhotra calls himself a lifestyle medicine doctor. He does understand all my research, but he said, well, and so does Eric Westman. If you can't fight them, join them as the name. But then it becomes a confusing message, I think, to a lot of people, because they see Eric Westman, who is just an absolute leader in this space and probably one of the earliest proponents of low carbohydrate. And he's worked so hard in this space. But if he's a lifestyle medicine doctor, then other people go, well, so is that person a lifestyle medicine doctor? And the College of Lifestyle Medicine, oh, well, that'll be a good thing. So it's tricky. I think it's very tricky.
It's very tricky for someone who doesn't know whose voice to listen to.
And I think if you go into these spaces, why are they demonizing animal proteins and fats? If you look at the Bible, except for the Seventh-day Adventist belief that it's just purely in the Garden of Eden and sin was everything from then. Even the Bible says that Jesus ate meat, he ate fish. You look at evolutionary theory, meat and fish were predominant, and in the creation mythologies, they ate animal proteins and fats. So I don't think which angle you come from. And even the most devout religion, Jainism, they don't stop people from eating or cooking with ghee and using butter in yak butter, because they know people need vitamin B12. If you do not have vitamin B12 in your diet, and it's all very well for the Seventh-day Adventist Church to say, well, we can supplement vitamin B12. We can do all these things, but third world countries do not have the funding to be able to access supplements. And a lot of people who are listening to this vegan, vegetarian message, and I'll actually call it a vegan message because that's what it is. If you look at the Adventist health studies that have been done, I think pretty much since the 1950s, if you look at the actual fine print, vegetarian diets actually allow you to eat meat once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And a vegan diet allows you to eat meat or dairy products once a month. That's not the message the general public get.
No.
And potentially that's how they stay healthy.
In fact, some of the areas in the blue zones, right? People aren't pure vegans. They're still eating
None of them.
eggs.
None of them are vegans. It's only Loma Linda.
Fish or eggs or anyway. I think it's very confusing for the general public because they hear of the blue zones and they assume these people are not touching any eggs or it's
exactly.
It's very difficult. How do we approach the question of sort of ethical farming? Because a lot of people are choosing the vegan lifestyle, not necessarily to improve their own health.
Yes.
But because they genuinely care about animals.
I think if you have the opportunity to support local farmers, which we do here in Tasmania, potentially you do in the UK, a lot of people in America can't as much. Though when we were in America, I think in just before COVID, 2019, a lot of the restaurants in the New York City were actually having labels we got this meat from here. This is from this farm. This is from here. So if you can support that, even in a huge city, you're not going to the farm, you're not going to a farmer's market, but these people are saying that they have sourced those foods. That's fantastic, but not every single person can do that. And if you want health, we can talk about moral gymnastics and how important it is to be ethical and organic and whatever else, but not everyone can do it. So it's making the best choice that you can make for your health. And if the best choice you can make is to go to a supermarket and buy the fatty mince, then that's what you need to buy. If you can have a choice to support local farmers, paddock to plate, wow, how lucky are we to be able to buy eggs that truly are, well, I don't have to buy eggs, we've got chickens, but to be able to have these opportunities. But I think the moral gymnastics, it's really important to understand not everyone can do it either. So, we've got to support people where they are and get them to make the healthiest choices that they possibly can in their own communities and with the money that they have. And that's what I love about Eric Westman and even Robert Lustig. They've really targeted and said, look, it's really important that we get rid of ultra-processed foods, but I've got a subset of patients that go to McDonald's. So if I can tell them to go to McDonald's and eat this and this and this over this and this and this, to me, that's going to improve their diet incredibly. So yeah, I think, how do we make these choices? I would love to finish with a story about a guy called Harvey Wiley, who was a chemist in the US. He was a doctor and a chemist, and he was appointed by Rockefeller to create the Pure Food and Drug Act in 1906, what finally passed in 1906. And he took years to challenge. And unfortunately, the meat industry back then, the sausages and different, they were putting sawdust in, they were putting some really poor things in. We suddenly had a lot of people come from farm into the cities, and they couldn't cope. They couldn't transport the food. There wasn't refrigeration. So they were doing some pretty bad things to meat, dairy, processed foods, the wheat, like it was across the board. But his biggest concern was Coca-Cola. And they still had cocaine and high sugar and high caffeine content in Coca-Cola. So in 1906, he finally got it passed, fighting Coca-Cola at every level, and they still paid off Congress. So when he tried to take, this policy that he brought in, he still couldn't get Coca-Cola in the door to regulate them. So in 1911, he took them to court himself personally and lost, because of course Coca-Cola is multinational, it wasn't multinational back then, but it still had a lot of money. So in 1912, he gave up in disgust, and he went to work. He became the director of a women's magazine. If you can't change policy, who do you want the message to get to? You want it to get to the women who are the purchasers, the consumers, the people who nourish their families. And he was so excited. He spent the rest of his life working for this women's magazine, writing columns about what was healthy and what was not. And he created the opportunity for 20,000 women to march on Congress. And that's how Coca-Cola had to take their cocaine out of their products. And I think this is, what you're achieving, what we're achieving, what the people we can help muster up is that we don't have to wait for policy. We've got the opportunity to purchase, to nourish. And if policy doesn't keep up with us, we'll ignore it as much as you possibly can. Find the people you want. But maybe it's us. Maybe it's our grassroots that are going to change things that people who are trying to change at policy level will never be able to achieve.
We have the power. We can put the pressure on the policymaker.
Yeah, exactly.
Our voices can do that.
Well, our voices can do that.
That was a beautiful story and a beautiful way to end our conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation today.
Thank you, Nayiri. I really appreciated it.